All right, so today I'm here with Ben Gaines. Ben is in Greensboro, North Carolina. He is a realtor and an investor with United Properties. That's his company. He just started it this year. And Ben is one of the reasons why I do what I do. I love what I do, and this is why I do what I do. Ben started about a year ago, new to real estate investing, real estate brokerage, got his license, and reached out to me for help because he'd come across some deals and he was wanting to get into investing and didn't know where to start or how to get started, but he managed to get a deal under contract. And this was his first deal. And we coached him through it. He ended up doing the deal with no money out of his pocket, doing a subject to, and we helped him negotiate deals with the sellers, with his contractors. So he didn't have to pay for anything until the house was completed and sold. And I think you ended up making about 50 grand on it.
That's correct.
50 grand right out of the gate, first deal, never done a deal before, did a subject to. So Ben, tell us about this deal a little bit and how it started.
These guys contacted me because of a logo I had on the side of my old truck. So I put my company logo on the side of the truck. And, I'm a real estate agent as well and now own my own firm. So, I went in and gave them options. I offered to list the house, but these guys wanted a quick sale. Turns out it didn't turn out to be such a quick sale, but they were happy in the end. So I went in and originally negotiated a price, reached out to a hard money lender. So we had the initial price. The hard money lender came in to do an appraisal, and the appraisal came in $75,000 less what ultimately the house ended up selling for. So hard money wanted me ultimately to bring $60,000 to the table at closing, which that was well beyond what I was prepared to bring to the table. So that's when I reached out to Greg at that point.
So you had it under contract at that point for $175,000. So the first step was we had you go back and renegotiate the purchase price, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So what you ended up renegotiating the price from 175 down to?
Well, we renegotiated the first time to 165.
Right.
But the numbers still didn't work, according to the hard money appraisal. So I had to go back again and renegotiate to 155.
Right. And so I coached you through that process, and you were just like, they're never going to do it. I don't know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. I thought I was going to lose the deal.
Okay. So now you're at 155, and then you were working on some other financing and realized that none of that was going to work, right? That the financing wasn't going to work out. So then I said, well, let's do a subject to.
Yes, that's right.
Yep.
That's right.
And you're like, what's that? So then, what I coached Ben through was to go back to get the seller to do a subject to, which is basically deed him the property so that he could do the renovations on it and then pay them off when the property sells. And you absolutely never thought that would fly, right?
Right. Absolutely. It's hard, but you never know until you ask, is what I've learned. But it's certainly hard to go to someone you barely know and ask to assume their loan. But we offered a $1,500 incentive. So we raised the price from 155 to 156,500, and they went for it. My lawyer also guided them through the process. It's important to have a good attorney as well. He guided them through the process of the subject to. He was familiar with the subject to structure. And we went on from there.
Yep. So your funds were limited. So the next thing that I told you was, why don't you find a contractor that will float you the construction and renovation costs and pay him at the end and maybe pay him a little premium. So how did that work out?
Right. He essentially knocked his profit to the end of the deal. So 25% of the rehab costs were all paid after closing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And he floated the rehab costs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you got to this deal 100%, no money out of your pocket. I guess except you had a little bit of closing costs, right?
No. I had an interested family member or family friend who obviously invested some into the deal, which allowed me to pay that difference in, the renovations as well as the closing costs and all the carrying costs that went along with the deal, insurance.
That's right. Yeah. So other than, your investment in coaching, you had no money out of your pocket in this deal. How do you feel?
Right.
I remember when we first started talking and we were talking about your investment in coaching, you were like, man, I've never done anything like that. I don't know if I can do that. Or maybe you tried some things and it wasn't working out. How do you feel about that investment now?
I mean, I feel incredible. You always hear, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and that's how I found Greg. But it's incredible. It's great to have the first one behind you. And I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but I've proven that the second deal is a little easier than the first. To go out and find that second deal. But it allowed me to do so many things that I want to touch on. I was able during this process to open up a real estate brokerage. So I essentially used the profit from this deal to set myself up a new business, and I've got agents working for me, and looking forward to the future. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So the ROI on your investment in coaching is, how would you describe that?
Infinite, I believe, are the words we used.
Some people use the word free, but it ain't free up front.
It's hard to quantitate, I would say. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. A lot of people, they get hung up on that and they don't realize it's an investment, and now you've got your second deal under contract, right? So this now for everybody listening, you haven't even been working with me, maybe a couple of weeks when we got that first deal negotiated, set, ready to close. That was in the first couple of weeks. And then we had your entire business model set for you to go forward with that deal. And here we are now, 4 months later, you've put 50 grand in your pocket, you got that deal behind you, and you've got your second one, another subject to under contract right now that you're probably going to make another 30, 40, maybe 70 grand on, depending on what you do with it.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of options with this property. You and I had set a marketing plan, and to be honest with you, I'm working with some of these contacts you've given me. I haven't even had an opportunity to finish, putting that in place, and was able to find this deal. But what I'm the most proud of is being able to negotiate another subject to. Ultimately, it gives me that option, but it gives me an option to go out and maybe find another rehab to work on, because I will have to put a lot of funds into this first one. So it certainly opens up things when you're able to use other people's money.
Yeah, and creative strategies. A lot of people aren't familiar with subject to. Some people are, but there's subject to, lease option wholesales, rent to owns. There's all kinds of different ways. Now, There were a couple of key things you learned about the subject to along the way with insurances, taxes, things like that, using a land trust. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of times these loans are not assumable. Back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, a loan assumption was very, very common. But nowadays, a lot of these loans are not assumable. However, my lawyer had me create a land trust, and transfer the property into that trust, which does not call attention so as much as if I were to transfer it into another person. So that entity itself, it doesn't call attention to the property. They could call the loan at any time, so that's something everyone needs to be aware of. So you just need to be prepared to refinance or sell, or just pay off the property. But
yeah, it does trigger technical default when you transfer a property without paying the loan off. But generally, if the payments are being made, the lenders aren't going to mess with that, and very rarely does it happen. And but it can. So that's just something to be aware of. And subject to, you got to know what you're doing. You got to have the right attorneys, the right systems, and that kind of thing. But this is it's just really cool. I love that. Like I said, this just tickles me more than anything else. Is helping people like you start with nothing. And then all of a sudden now you've got your first deal, you've got a business, you had your license with somebody else, weren't sure what to do. Now you got your own brokerage, your own business, you've got agents working for you, you've got cash flow coming in off that, plus resources out there helping you find deals. So, now when you and I first met, you didn't know what to do or how. Now you've got this future in front of you that's just wide open.
Absolutely. Once again, I use the word options. I've got so many options with this business now. It's amazing. So, and it's something that I'm very, very proud of. I just, every day it's a lot of pride to come into your own office and have people that work for you. And, I was able to hire an assistant who turned into my broker in charge, and she's great. That's something that you and I, that you recommended. And you can't do all this stuff on your own. You have to surround yourself with good people. And it goes back to not being afraid to hire people that are smarter than you. And I know that's something that you've said, or better than you at certain things. I know you use the analogy, you wouldn't tell Tom Brady how to throw the ball. Well, I put these people around me who know, more than I do. And I
Yeah, you
listen to
bring
what they
Tom
say.
Brady in, you let him score
Yep,
touchdowns because that's what he does.
that's right.
That's what he was born to do. And
That's correct.
yeah,
So,
and that's the first thing I do with everybody, pretty much is, that's growing is you got to get that
mhm,
administrative, assistant slash office manager slash bookkeeper slash, that
mhm.
all in one
Yeah,
right-hand person that can just help you execute on that vision, build that company. I'm going to have Chuck and Sue on here as well. And we're going to do their story. Another couple that are in the house flipping and real estate business. And, they've 5X their business in a few short months working with me. And, that same
wow.
thing. They're like, man, that
Yeah,
administrative component was huge.
yeah,
And not only did I say, hey, you got to get one, but I helped you, with finding that person, structuring their role, how to compensate them, all of that. So there's, it's how to recruit, hire, train, lead, delegate, motivate. So it's a lot of stuff that goes into that. But, you know, so, I appreciate you carving a couple of minutes out to kind of talk about, your transformation and how this has gone. So Ben, you're in Greensboro, North Carolina. Your business is United Property. So if people want to get into some deals with you, if they're looking for deals, or if they're private lenders and they want to, participate as a lender in some of your deals, how can they get a hold of you?
yeah, I'm happy to give out my phone number. I know that's a little tough for some folks, but not my number is 336-645-5058. And my email is ben@unitedpropertiesnc.com.
So UnitedPropertiesNC.com, all the information's on there, and you're
Yep.
out there finding deals, helping people place capital that are looking for a home for capital, and making it happen, man. That's awesome, Ben. Congratulations.
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.